Good evening, and let us try to understand that we really mean good in its spiritual sense. Not an evening of ideas about God, but an evening of communing with presence. An evening of drawing back the curtain of the senses and discovering that which has been with us from the beginning, nearer than hands and feet, closer than our very breath. Let us be content, just for now, to be together in that intention, because this is not a lesson about a verse. This is a resting in what the verse points to. When the Master said, "Abide in me," he did not hand out a badge to wear, nor an argument to win, nor even a mood to attain. He offered the most intimate command ever spoken. I call it a command of love. Not believe harder, not try more earnestly, not produce virtue by personal resolve. Abide, remain, settle back into, consent to union. Will you let that be heard with your inner ear? Abide in me. If you listen softly, you will hear that the emphasis is not on striving, but on yielding, not on going out to find, but on letting go to discover what is already here. I am going to interrupt myself right there, because at this very point confusion often begins. We think that abiding is thinking about God. We suppose it is talking to God very fervently. We may even imagine it is persuading God to come. No, that is not it. Abiding is turning within to the already established presence. I am quoting to you, "The kingdom of God is within you. Go thou into thy closet, shut the door. Pray to thy Father which is in secret." This is not poetry. This is instruction for the inner act of resting into the withinness that is a fact before any thought is entertained about it. Let us be honest. For many years I used words about God. I had ideas about good, but I did not yet know how to abide. I did not yet know how to be still and let I in the midst of me be the reality of the moment. And by now I am in a position to say this to you with a great deal of authority born of trial and of grace. Abiding is not adding thoughts to thoughts. It is the subtraction of pressure. Be still and know that I am God. Do you feel the order in that? First be still, then knowing arises. We are accustomed to reverse it. Know first, be still later. But the Master's way is to rest inwardly and let knowledge be given. So when I say inner sanctuary, do not picture a room in a building or a mountaintop at dusk. Go inside. Close the door within yourself. You close it not by efforting, not by holding your breath or tightening your brow, but by a gentle movement of attention from the surface. Clamor to the quiet center that is ever present. Where I am, God is. Where God is, I am. Abiding is simply staying home there, even while your hands are washing dishes, even while your feet are crossing a busy street, even while your voice is answering an email or a friend. The outer man moves, the inner man rests, the vine lives, the branch yields. Now remember this, because it will save you long detours. Abiding is not an hour in a chair and then a return to self-powered living. Abiding is a continuing experience. The Master did not mean a visit, he meant a dwelling. If you abide in me and my word abides in you, hear it, a life, not a stunt. This way of life is learned as you return inwardly, again and again, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times a day, if need be, quietly, privately, without display, without announcing it to anyone. A breath's turning, a sacred pause, a closing of the inner door for 5 seconds, for 3 seconds, for the space of 1 heartbeat. And in that pause, the miracle is not that you have managed to think a holy thought, but that you have ceased insisting on your own management, and the Father within doeth the works. I am letting you in on the secret that ended my strain and began my peace. You will never need to persuade God. You will only need to make room through stillness for the presence that is already here, to be the presence that acts. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Abiding is the consent by which those words become operative rather than decorative. And as you learn this consent, you will find that your religion, if you like that word, ceases to be Sunday language and becomes Monday breath, Tuesday footsteps, Wednesday tone of voice. Do you doubt it? You need not believe me. Take this as an invitation, not a demand. This very hour can be the beginning of a different rhythm, not spectacular, not noisy, not cloud nine. A quiet life in which you are less impressed by things out there and more convinced by the soft, weighty peace in here. We will speak of many facets in the hours to come, but for now, let us agree on this foundation. Abide in me means rest inwardly, in the presence that is already here. Not imagine it, not force it, rest in it. And because it is within, it can be practiced anywhere, in any hour, in the midst of any condition, as often as your heart remembers to return. And it will remember more and more, until abiding is not something you begin, but the home in which you are found. Now I have to tell you the strange thing, and I tell it as one who has walked it with all the earnestness that a human heart can muster. I prayed, I studied, I attended services, I read good books, good in their spiritual sense. I used the right words, I kept lists, and the strange thing was that I often still felt very much alone with my problems, very much the manager of my life, very much the one who had to make something happen. The strange thing is, I didn't know how to pray in the way the Master meant. Excuse me, I was praying outwardly to an inward presence. I was sending words out into the air and then waiting and watching the clock, and looking out at circumstances to see if my words had reached God on time. Do you know that feeling? Do you know that mild panic of, what else must I say? What else must I do? And I will say this to you now, with the authority that comes only after much futile trying and a little grace. Distance is usually a habit, not a verdict, not a lack of sincerity, not a divine refusal. We have simply been trained by culture, by fear, by our senses, to live as if God were elsewhere, as if God were an object to reach, as if God traveled across miles to arrive when we are good enough or desperate enough. And so we strain, we analyze, we rehearse, we promise, we double-check our phrases, and we compare our prayers to someone's book or someone's testimony, and we exhaust ourselves. And then we say, God seems far off. No, no. We have been practicing distance. We have been practicing outwardness. Let me give you what cured me of that treadmill. The agency is reversed in the spiritual life. The human mind cannot produce God contact. It can only yield to it. I can of mine own self do nothing. That is not humility theater. That is the operating principle of grace. The Father within me, he doeth the works. If I speak of myself, my cleverness, my formulas, my persistence, I bear witness to a lie. Because what is true is this: prayer does not draw a reluctant deity into action. Prayer releases us from the posture of a personal actor so that the already present life may be the actor. I am going to interrupt myself here because this is where we must unlearn something very dear to our ego. We have believed that if we just get the right words, if we just increase the volume or the tears, we will move God. Beloved, God is not movable in that way because God is not away. The kingdom of God is within you. Where shall we move that which already fills all in all? In him we live and move and have our being. The movement required is not a movement of God toward us, but of our attention from outer to inner, from mental performance to spiritual consent. And when I say outer, I do not mean the visible world is evil or to be despised. I mean the habit of starting there, measuring there, deciding there, and then dragging God in as a consultant. That is the habit that creates the sensation of distance. It is as if one stood outside his own home, peering through the window and saying, "If only I could get in," while the key rests quietly in his pocket. or like tuning a radio by turning the knob harder, 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 as if force created a station. The music is on the air. The art is to attune. Now remember this and let it be a balm to your heart. You are not failing. Your sincerity is not in question. Your love for God is not being graded. What has been missing is not merit, but the right direction of attention. We have been educated to treat God as an object of thought, and in so doing we have made our thoughts the center. We have tried to carry God around as an idea when God is the life carrying us. And so our prayers became speeches, and our speeches became weariness, and we supposed God was silent. He was not silent. We were noisy. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. Do you hear the promise and the order? Peace is not manufactured. It is given where the mind rests in the presence, not in the details, not in the calculations, not even in the religious decorations of our sentences. In thee. And so the art before us is not to become expert arguers for God, but to become simple yielders to God. I do not mean a collapse into passivity in the outer life. I mean a quiet inner release from the conceit that my thinking fixes life. It does not. It cannot. The Father within doeth the works. By now I can say this to you with a settled assurance. The moment you turn within in sincerity, not to think more, but to stop insisting, you will notice the first soft evidence that you have ceased practicing distance. A hush, a lightness, not fireworks, not cloud nine, just the gentle sense that another is on the field, not another apart from you, but I in the midst of you. And in that moment, your problem is no longer being handled by a solitary struggler. It is resting in the rhythm of a presence that knows, that is, that acts. Do you doubt that a habit can be unlearned? I assure you, it can, and you will discover it more quickly than you fear. Every time you catch yourself rehearsing speeches to God, stop for 3 seconds, not to start a better speech, but to abide. Every time you feel the muscles of your mind tightening to figure it out, relax the grip and let the attention sink back a half-inch, behind the forehead, down into the chest, wherever you feel that secret place we call within. Say nothing. Seek nothing. Acknowledge that which already is. And if you say anything, let it be something like this: I can of mine own self do nothing. Then be still. Let the words evaporate into the fact. Beautiful. Already you are nearer than you thought, because nearness was never a question. We have not been excluded. We have been distracted. We have not been refused. We have been outward. And now we are learning, a learnable art, to return, not to conquer the world with sacred techniques, but to let the indwelling life live us. And from that day, and from that hour, the sense of distance begins to dissolve, not because we have become more worthy, but because we have ceased to worship our own effort. The Father that seeth in secret will reward openly, but we will speak of that fruit as it appears. For now let your heart take courage. You have not failed at prayer. You have only been practicing a posture that felt like distance. And tonight, even now, you can lay it down and turn homeward within. Let us come now to the Master's own picture, and I must ask you to hear it as instruction and as metaphysics, not as a figure of speech for Sunday. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He did not decorate our religion with a vineyard. He gave us the operating diagram of spiritual living. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me. Do you hear the law in that? Not a suggestion, not an encouragement to try harder, a law of being. The branch does not manufacture sap. The branch does not plan the harvest. The branch consents to union, and the life of the vine flows of itself. I am going to interrupt myself right here, because if we miss this, we may add years to our strain. The branch remains. The vine supplies. The branch yields. The vine produces. The branch does not make grapes by self-improvement projects. It does not set goals or recite affirmations to coax sweetness out of dryness. It abides. And because the life in which it abides is fullness, fruit appears without strain. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. And then the plain word, for without me ye can do nothing. Without the inner union, without the realized presence, our most ingenious efforts are like a cut branch arranged prettily in a vase, momentary freshness, then withering. With union, ordinary limbs bear extraordinary fruit. What then is this abiding when it is not poetry but practice? It is, in lived terms, a felt settling back into the presence that is already here. It is the quiet confidence that comes uninvited the moment the mind ceases its insisting. It is a soft awareness, often without words, often without images, that another is on the field, and that this another is the I in the midst of me. It can be as gentle as the sense of being held from within, as simple as the breath unhindered, as immediate as the release you feel when you stop gripping the steering wheel of life with white knuckles and let your hands rest for a moment in your lap. Not sleep, not trance. A living stillness, alert and at ease. Now remember this, because it will keep you from waiting for fireworks. Abiding does not require a sentence or a picture. If you find a word helps, let it be a doorway and not a demand. Father, or here, or I. Say it once, say it softly, then let it evaporate and return to the silence that says it better. If you find no word, beautiful, rest anyway. You will know you are there, not because you have seen a light, but because a pressure has dissolved. The mental air has cleared. You are not carrying the world for 3 seconds, and in those 3 seconds, the world begins to rest on the everlasting arms. And what of the fruit? Let us try to understand fruit in its spiritual sense. Fruit is not our personal polish. It is not the ego congratulating itself that it has finally become angelic. Fruit is the natural evidence of inner contact. It is peace where there was agitation. It is harmony where there was friction. It is the right word that rises without rehearsal. It is a decision free of the tremor of fear. It is a change in the tone of a home or an office that no memo could have produced. Sometimes it is supply appearing without fretful scheming, not by magic, but because the life of the vine is abundance by nature and expresses as enoughness wherever a branch consents to be a branch. Do you see the order? Inside out. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. The secret is not secrecy for secrecy's sake. We are not keeping a trick. The secret is the inner place where the work is done. The prayer closet is the center of your own being. Close the door upon your problem solving and open the door within to presence. There, in the hush, the Father within doeth the works. And then, often with no trumpet, with no announcement, the reward appears openly. The tension in the conversation is gone before you speak. The check you strain to secure arrives from a quarter you did not cultivate. The diagnosis softens, the child quiets. Not because you have moved chess pieces around more cleverly, but because the sap of life has moved in you and through you, and out beyond you to rejoin itself as form. I say this to you with a great deal of authority now, not because I am clever, but because over the years I have watched again and again the same sequence. Inner contact first, outer harmony next. I have taken a letter that would have wrung the heart, and instead of drafting a reply, I have abided for 1 minute, 30 seconds, and in that stillness a phrase would arrive, or the impulse to wait would arrive, and then, unlooked for, the circumstance would begin to untangle. I have sat at a desk with accounts that did not add up and discovered that when the mind is stayed on thee, figures find their right places and supply finds its channel. And I must say it again, because it is the spine of our way. I did not do it. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. Do you doubt it? You need not take it on authority. Try the art and look to the fruit. When you feel the pressure to fix, pause. Turn within, without effort, without bargaining. Abide. If only for a breath, abide. Notice if there is the tiniest lessening of anxiety. That lessening is sap. That quiet is law at work. That peace is not your peace. It is God's peace, and where God's peace is operative, form and function begin to take their cue. Now do not leap from the silence to the typewriter in a panic to keep that peace. Stay a moment longer. Let the abiding ripen. Then, when you act, the action will be vine-born, branch-delivered, and it will carry the weight of inevitability instead of the clang of personal strain. I am letting you in on the secret that makes religion practical. Intimacy with God is a spiritual fact before it becomes a feeling. The vine and the branch are not striving toward closeness. They are of one life. Our practice does not engineer union. It recognizes it. We do not persuade presence to come. We cease telling presence to wait at the door while we run affairs for a while. And the moment we consent, here, now, the flow resumes, or rather, our attention discovers that it never ceased. From that flow, fruit. Always fruit. Sometimes small, sometimes large, but always of the same nature. Peace, harmony, rightness. So let us begin to live as branches. In the kitchen, in the office, on the sidewalk, at the bedside, remain. Settle back inwardly and let the sap find you where you are. Do not wait for a retreat. Do not seek a cloud. Seek the withinness that is present in traffic as surely as in temple. And as you do, you will prove that John 15 is not a poem pinned to a wall. It is the daily law by which life becomes holy in the midst of the ordinary. Abide in me, and I in you, and the fruit, without strain, without advertisement, will bear witness. Now, let me say something that will spare you a very great disappointment down the road. I do not mean that this abiding leads to a life of sitting up on cloud 9, floating over the marketplace, untouched by grocery lists and deadlines and children with fevers and a boss who woke up on the wrong side of the bed. No, it is not escape. It is not the manufacture of a permanent glow that keeps away tears. In the world ye shall have tribulation is still part of our scripture, but hear the next word with your inner ear. Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Overcome where? In the contact, in the withinness, in that place nearer than breathing and closer than hands and feet. The tribulation remains an event in the outer scene. The overcoming is an atmosphere in the inner sanctuary, and we carry that sanctuary with us. I am going to interrupt myself here because some of you have already begun to ask, if abiding is so beautiful, why do I still feel tired? Why did I still speak sharply? Why did the bills still arrive? Because abiding is not a switch that turns off being human. It is the discovery of a deeper identity that is not at the mercy of the human weather. The day will still bring you work to do, good, honest work. The body will still require rest and bread. Emotions will still ripple because we have nervous systems and hearts that love. Do not despise this. Do not make an enemy of your humanness. Instead, find that the abiding gives you a place to stand while the ripples play and the work proceeds. The center remains while the circumference turns. What changes, and this I can tell you with a great deal of assurance now, is the starting point of your actions. Formerly, we started from pressure, from I must, I'd better, what if? And then we dragged God in as consultant. Now we begin from contact. We begin from a pause. We begin from 5 seconds of remembering that the life acts that the Father within doeth the works, and then we let our hands go back to the wheel. I call these micro moments and I offer them to you because they make this way livable in a city bus and at a kitchen sink. You are not required to find an hour in a monastery. You are invited to find a breath in a meeting. Let me give you what that looks like, because otherwise it will remain poetry. The email chimes and you know it is the one you have been dreading. Before your fingers reach the keys, close the inner door for 5 seconds, not to draft a clever answer in your head, to consent. Father. Then quiet. You will feel, often as quick as the blink of an eye, that little settling. That is contact. Now answer. The answer will be different in tone, because it is branch speech, not twig panic. You are about to enter a difficult call. The stakes feel high. The old habit is to rehearse and brace. Do not shame yourself for the habit, just interrupt it. One breath, only one, drawn as if you were drawing it from the center of your chest instead of from the air, and in that breath, remember, I can of mine own self do nothing. Let the words dissolve into the fact. Then dial. You will discover that you listen differently and you are less eager to win the point. And strangely enough, you often accomplish more. You are in traffic and the light is red and your mind is making a list of wrongs and worries. Beautiful opportunity. Keep your eyes on the road where they belong, but drop the inner eyes a half inch and say nothing for 3 seconds. Just abide. At the fresh green, you will move forward on the same street, but not with the same strain. Do you see? The outer scene did not require a miracle. Your inner posture changed, and with it, your experience of the scene. Now remember this, because it will free you from the perfectionism that ruins many a prayer life. The metric here is not duration, it is contact. If you have 30 seconds, lovely. If you have 3 seconds, that obedience counts. If you taste stillness for the space of 1 heartbeat, heaven recognizes it as the same consent the mystic gives after an hour, because God is not measuring minutes. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. Stayed does not mean glued. It means returned to again and again. 5 seconds before a reply, 3 seconds at the sink, a single breath after the door slams. This is a stayed mind. This is abiding as a way of moving through a day. Do you doubt that such small obediences matter? I did too, until I began to notice the fruit. Not fireworks, not angels at the ceiling. Quiet fruit. I would reach for a word and find that the sharp one had no energy behind it and the kindly one rose of itself. I would face an afternoon's load and find that the dread had thinned. I would walk into the same office with the same personalities and find that I was not personally threatened by the mood in the room. The room could be the room, but I had a sanctuary, and then, without proclamation, the atmosphere in that room began, slowly, to take its cue from the peace that one person carried. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. I am letting you in on the secret that takes this out of religion class and puts it into washing dishes. You can abide while your hands are busy. You can abide while your mouth is speaking. You can abide while the baby cries and you walk the floor. You can abide when you cannot take a 10-minute break, because abiding is not a break from life. It is the inlet of life into life. And the more you practice these micro moments, the more quickly you will find yourself returning without effort. The habit of outwardness can be replaced by the habit of inwardness, and then you will discover that even when you forget for an hour, the inner place has not gone anywhere. The vine is not sulking. The life is still flowing. 1 breath, and you are home. Now, do not misunderstand me. There will be days when you forget entirely until night, and you will think, I have failed. No, no. That thought is the last trick of the outward habit. In that very moment of noticing, turn. Do not make a speech. Do not apologize to God as if he had been waiting in the parlor, tapping his foot. turn and rest for the space of one heartbeat. Let the Father within resume the conscious governance of the hour, and then sleep, or then write, or then drive from that peace. This is what it means to abide in the middle of ordinary human days. Not escape, not cloud nine. Contact, and contact that accompanies you, as surely in a crowded store as in a quiet chapel, because the kingdom we are learning is within you. Where you are, God is. Where God is, you are. And so, right where you are, even as the kettle whistles and the calendar presses, abide. Now, let us come very simply and very practically to the art itself. I am using the word art deliberately because I want you to feel the relief that comes when you discover that this is not a mystical talent some are born with and some are not. It is an art that can be learned, like learning to keep a steady hand while you pour water, or learning to hear the key in a song. Anyone can learn it, high or low, rich or poor, busy or retired, saint or sinner, because the kingdom we are touching is not awarded, it is within. And I am going to say this with the authority that comes of watching this unfold in many lives. You do not need to arrive at mastery before fruit appears. Hints come first, then attempts, then brief flashes, then more frequent returns, and then, do you see the curve? The ability to turn within almost at will, not by magic, but by familiarity. Now remember this, because it will spare you a good deal of strain. We are not training the mind to concentrate in order to make something happen. We are training the attention to yield, to become receptive, to stop insisting. Go into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. The closet is within you. The shutting of the door is not a contrived frown between the eyes. It is the ceasing of our outward grasping. Be still and know that I am God. Do you hear the order? Stillness first, knowing follows. The mind's task is not to manufacture God. Its task is to stop pretending to be God and to let the secret place announce itself. Let me give you, if you will permit, the simplest technique I know, not as a formula to force God, but as a doorway to consent. Sit if you can. Stand if you must. Keep your eyes open if you are driving, closed if you are safe and quiet. Bring the attention home, down from its perch behind the forehead, into the center of the chest. Do you know that place? And let one word rise, not repeated like a hammer, but offered like a feather. Here, or now, or Father, or even the simple I. Say it once, inwardly, then be still. Let the word evaporate into the silence from which it came. Listen, not for a sound, but for a presence. Do not search wildly, just rest. 3 seconds if that is all you have. 30 if grace grants it. You will notice, if only as lightly as a shift of breeze, that something in you settles. That is the door closing. That is the consent. That is the beginning of abiding. I'm going to interrupt myself because already a few of you are thinking, but my mind runs. I cannot keep still. I try and thoughts come like sparrows. Beloved, sparrows come whether you try or not. Do not chase them. Do not clap at them. Let them flit. We are not at war with thoughts. Our art is to prefer the inner quiet more than we prefer their content, and to return without drama. The returning is the practice. The returning is what we are training. When you notice you have wandered, do not scold. Do not start over with a heavier hand. Gently say your doorway word once, here, and rest again. Do it 10 times in a minute, and you have succeeded not once, but 10 times, because each return is obedience. Each return is a petal of consent, and the cumulative fragrance of those little obediences is peace. There is a rhythm to this, and I want to free you from comparison. Some of us discover, almost to our surprise, that the inner ear takes to this quickly, like those rare musicians who can sit down at a piano and play by ear before they have learned to read a note. Others learn like the careful student who reads every note aloud, finger by finger, measure by measure, and feels mechanical for a while. Do you see? In the end, both make music. The natural player is not spiritually superior. The reader is not spiritually inferior. They are simply different in rhythm. And strangely, the careful reader often develops a depth and steadiness that carries him when the natural player has a thin day. So whether you take to this with ease or whether you feel clumsy at first, count neither as a badge. Count only your willingness to continue. As you practice, keep the pressure off yourself in 3 ways. First, keep it brief and frequent rather than long and rare. 5 seconds upon waking before your feet touch the floor. 3 seconds before you open a door. A breath at the sink. A pause before you answer your name. Later, if you are given a longer span, beautiful. But the fabric of a day is woven of many small threads, and the mind learns best by these gentle, repeated returns. Second, keep the intention pure. We are not entering the inner room to make a condition budge. We are entering because God is. I can of mine own self do nothing. Say it softly, not as a whip, but as a release. Then abide. If you catch yourself bargaining, now if I get this quiet, perhaps the phone call will go my way. Smile at your humanity and return to simple acknowledgement. Thou art. This protects the practice from becoming a technique for control, and it keeps the atmosphere clean. Third, keep the practice secret and tender. Speak of it little. Keep your finger on your lip, as it were, and let the Father that seeth in secret reward you openly. Why? Because secrecy protects you from performance. The moment we talk too much about our peaceful minutes, we begin timing them and judging them and advertising them, and the art shifts from sacred to show. Do you see? Hide it a while in your heart, and it will grow there. What will you notice as the weeks pass? At first, hints. The noise inside will part as if a curtain were drawn back for a breath. Then, flashes. The wordless sense of being met from within, of being companioned by an unseen patience, will arrive more than once a day. Then a build of familiarity. You will find that in a difficulty your hand reaches for the inner door, without your telling it to, and then, I say this soberly, there arrives the ability to return almost at will. Not always. We remain human. We have nights. But often, you will be able, in the middle of what used to seize you, to lean inward, and there it is, a quiet that is not of your making. Do you doubt that such training matters? Try it for a week and watch for the most modest fruit. Not miracles, though some will come in their hour. Watch for the first change in your own tone. Watch for the unforced patience that appears in a sentence. Watch for the lessening of dread before a task. These are the early blossoms. Do not pluck them. Let them be signs that the sap is flowing. Now remember this, and let it be the headline written across your practice. Do not force. Do not force the breath. Do not force the mind. Do not force God. Offer your little word. Return when you wander. Prefer the hush, and let the Father within do the works. If you leave this evening with only this, take it tenderly. Abiding becomes natural when you practice returning inwardly without forcing outcomes. You are not the engineer of grace. You are its consenting branch. You are not the maker of peace. You are its place of rest. And from that rest, life will come to meet you, and you will discover that the art you thought was beyond you was, all along, the simplest move a soul can make, homeward, within. Let us, for a few minutes, bring this down from theory to the living sense of it. What does it feel like, right now, in real time, when you are abiding? I am not asking you to imagine perfection. I am asking you to notice what is already here when attention yields. Do you notice, first of all, that something in the head, which was buzzing, slows as if the motor has been turned down? Not off. Down. The sentences do not vanish by command. They lose their urgency because they are no longer being fed. Do you notice how, when you stop feeding a thought with fear, it becomes a thought and not a tyrant? And with that, almost immediately, the body answers. The jaw that had been set releases a fraction. The shoulders, were you holding them, drop a half inch. The breath, which was being pulled or pushed, begins to find its own even tide. This is not sedation. This is the soul remembering home. There is often a softness just behind the eyes, as if a small room inside you had been opened and fresh air let in. The forehead smooths, and the hands, even if they continue their task, loosen their grip on the world. And then, finer than any of these, listen closely, there appears a sense of being companioned from within. I do not mean that you see an image. I mean a felt support that did not come from any sentence you constructed. Held, that is the word. Not holding on, but being held. Do you recognize that? It can be as brief as a breath and as quiet as a feather on water, and yet it carries an authority that 1,000 affirmations cannot supply. I'm going to interrupt myself because someone is already asking, but how do I know this isn't hypnosis? How do I know I'm not lulling myself? Listen to the difference. Self-hypnosis aims to dull, to blanket, to paint bright colors over gray. It says, feel better, and it works by suggestion. Abiding does not suggest. It acknowledges. It does not add a layer. It removes the pressure of the false. You remain alert, more alert, in fact, yet without the itch to fix. You can hear the clock in the room and the faraway traffic, but you do not feel pulled upon by them. You can see the email and no fog covers it. Yet the hook that made it dangerous is not in your cheek. This is not suppression either. Suppression is tense and brittle. Abiding is easy and spacious. Do you notice the difference in your own nervous system? Suppression makes you hold your breath. Abiding breathes you. And now let me put a name to the most trustworthy sign you have touched the inner kingdom. Peace, not your peace, God's peace. The peace that passeth understanding, which is to say, it did not arrive as the payment for a line of reasoning. You did not think your way into it. It came as if from another, because the Father within is on the field. That peace is not a mood. It is evidence. It is the proof that prayer, real prayer, has been prayed, even if you said no words at all. When peace appears, even for 3 seconds, you have made contact. The branch has felt the sap. Do you see why I call this evidence? Because it changes the conditions in which action will take place. From peace, the word that is needed rises. From peace, the unnecessary defense falls away. From peace, what seemed urgent becomes simply the next honest step. Now remember this, so that you do not overshoot the mark looking for fireworks. Abiding is not blankness. You are not to try to empty the mind as a test of holiness. God does not require a whiteboard. If silence comes, beautiful. If thoughts pass like birds, beautiful. The criterion is not the absence of movement in your head. The criterion is the absence of compulsion in your chest. Do you notice the reduction of hurry? Do you notice that you are given the freedom to wait 1 beat before you answer? That 1 beat is sanctuary. That 1 beat is the Father saying, I am. And in that space you discover you do not need to carry everything, because you cannot. I can of mine own self do nothing. Say it softly if you like, but more than that. Feel the relief of it, then rest. In that rest, the works are done of Him. If you say to me, sometimes I feel nothing, I will say, look more gently. We have been trained to look for floods and miss the brook at our feet. Is there the smallest softening anywhere, in the eyes, the tongue, the hands? Is there 1 degree more room around the worry? Do you detect the thinnest veil of quiet over the scene, like morning light before the sun is full? Do not despise that. That is the same peace in its first appearing. It widens with attention, not with force. Prefer it. Lean a hair's breadth toward it. Do it now, mid-sentence if you like. There. Do you notice how the thought slows when you stop feeding it? Do you notice the peace that is not your peace? That is the living definition. Let me give you a simple way to test the difference between abiding and positive thinking. Positive thinking tries to persuade a circumstance to be friendly. Abiding discovers that you are friendly because God is your atmosphere, and then the circumstance takes its cue as it may. Positive thinking labors to keep the balloon in the air. Abiding rests, and the air holds the balloon. One is a performance, the other is participation. One leaves you tired by noon, the other renews your strength as the day goes on. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. In real abiding, you do not have a tight smile, you have soft eyes. You do not have a clenched optimism, you have a quiet readiness. You are not dazzled, you are present. I am letting you in on the secret we use in our work, and it will carry you in your work. Peace is operational. Stillness is functional. This is not decoration for a Sunday. When peace is present, God is on the field. When stillness settles, the government of the hour has been reassigned from your anxious mind to the one in the midst of you. From there, answers come that do not wound. From there, timing appears that will not rush you past the gate or hold you outside it. From there, even if nothing outward changes at once, you are changed, and the world meets a different man, a different woman than it met 5 minutes ago. So learn to recognize it, court it without forcing it, honor its slightest hint as you would honor a guest you love. And when you taste it, 3 seconds 30, act from it or rest in it as you are led. If it fades, return without scolding. If it swells, say nothing to advertise it. Keep your finger on your lip and let the Father that seeth in secret reward you openly. This is how abiding feels in real time. A lessening of pressure, a softening of the body, a lifting of the inner hand from the lever, and the unmistakable gentle authority of a presence that is closer than breath. When you find that, even briefly, you have found the way, and the way will keep you. Now let us carry this into the places where the pressure seems to sit on our shoulders. The desk, the call, the room with the long table and the clock on the wall. Abiding, to have any meaning, must become the first movement before you answer, before you decide, before you defend. Not after the tangle, but just before the hand reaches the rope. And I am going to say this with the quiet authority of someone who has watched it bear fruit from Honolulu to New York, from offices to factories to classrooms. If you will give God the first breath, He will govern the next hour. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Acknowledge is the word, not analyze, not plead. Acknowledge. Abide first, then act. Let me show you what this looks like at work. You are criticized fairly or unfairly by a superior or a customer. The old habit moves like a spring. Justify, explain, defend, prove. Do not despise the spring. Just do not obey it. One breath, just one. Inside, quietly, I will not speak of myself. Do you know that line? If I speak of myself, I bear witness to a lie. Let the heat fall 2 degrees. Father within, reveal what is true here. Say no more. In that slight stillness, you will often discover that the first impulse, which was to fire back, is not the word for this moment. The answer may be as simple as, "Thank you, give me an hour to look," or "Help me understand which step disappointed you." Or it may be silence now, words later, but whatever comes will carry a different fragrance, because it will rise from presence rather than pressure. And watch the fruit. The tone in the room shifts. The critic, no longer met by your defense, discovers in himself the freedom to be accurate instead of angry. Or, if you were in the wrong, you are graced with the humility to receive correction without humiliation, because your worth never left the inner sanctuary. You are negotiating, numbers on the table, faces practiced, the clock reminding you that delay costs. The world trains you to fill the space with speech, to push, to sweeten, to harden. We will not despise the world's training. It has its use, but we have a prior obedience. Before your mouth opens, acknowledge. Father within, thou art the law and the substance of this transaction. Reveal what is true here. Then be still for 3 seconds in the middle of the boardroom. You need not close your eyes. No one will know outwardly. Do you know what will happen? Timing will appear. Instead of the hurried concession that weakens the structure, you will ask one honest question that unveils the real issue. Instead of insisting on today, you will recognize that waiting 48 hours will bring the right signature with it. And yes, I am telling you that supply increases without strain when the branch consents to the flow of the vine. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly, even in contracts. You are presenting, and the old companions arrive. Dry mouth, forethoughts that tangle, the echo of your own name sounding brittle, beautiful. You have in that very moment a sanctuary, behind the lectern, before the first slide, the simplest consent. Father, thou art my word and my breath. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. Say nothing else. Then open your mouth. You will notice that you are not talking to win. You are sharing from sufficiency. Your sentences are not braced. They are clean. The audience senses not show, but substance, and without your trying, respect appears, not for your personality, but for the message carried on the quiet. You must correct someone, a colleague, an assistant, whose mistake has real cost. The ego loves this role because it can teach a lesson and elevate itself in the same stroke. Do not follow it. Abide first. I will not speak of myself. The pause is not indulgence, it is obedience. Father within, reveal what is true here, how to build, not break. Then speak. You will find yourself separating the person from the pattern, naming the fact without fastening it like a label onto their identity. You may still change a responsibility, adjust a timeline, even take a hard line where stewardship requires it, but the energy behind it will not wound. And here is the fruit. That person will go away corrected and oddly strengthened because the correction came from peace. Now I must interrupt myself and confess that I did not know this at first. For years I believed that to be effective, I had to carry the hour on my shoulders and keep talking until my weight had forced the shape I wanted. And I discovered slowly and painfully that the more I spoke from myself, the more tangled the threads became. When I began, timidly, to give God the first breath, I watched the knots undo in front of me. Not because I had become clever, because the Father within, having been acknowledged, did what minds cannot do. He ordered the scene from within. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Does that mean we become passive? No. No. It means that action in its right time becomes clean and quiet, and silence in its right time becomes authority. Decision-making is another place where this art ripens. A project has too many variables. The whiteboard is full. The analysis is now feeding on itself. Stop, not forever. Stop for 1 minute. Shut the inner door. Father within, reveal what is true here. What is the one honest step? Say nothing else. Do not fish for a picture. Rest, then return to your papers. You will find, not always instantly but often enough to become your new normal, that one task rises as the next right thing, or one option quietly loses its glow and you lay it down without drama. Clarity is the fruit of consent. Restraint appears without repression, and the team feels, without knowing why, that the room is no longer being whipped. They give you their best not because you demanded it, but because peace makes room for excellence. Defending yourself when misrepresented is a sharp edge. And we must be practical here. The body will want to lunge. The tongue will offer you a paragraph. Remember our headline, Abide First. I will not speak of myself. If you are given to speak, one sentence may be given, a simple correction of fact without heat. If you are given to wait, wait in peace, not in sulking. You will be astonished how often, when you decline to push your own vindication, the truth turns out to have its own legs. Someone else in the room says, "That isn't quite what happened," and the air clears. And if no one speaks in that hour, another time opens and you are given your moment. Right timing is as much a miracle as right words. Now remember this, because it will anchor the day. Our question is no longer, how do I fix this? Our question becomes, Father within, reveal what is true here. One is strain, the other is sanctuary. One makes you the engineer, the other makes you the branch. And fruit follows the branch, always. What fruit? Clarity instead of confusion, restraint instead of reactivity, timing that protects you from both delay and hurry, a different tone that enters relationships and, almost beyond belief, alters them. The same colleague who pushed yesterday finds he cannot stick his hook into you today, and because there is nothing to pull, he stops pulling. The same schedule that threatened to break you somehow arranges itself without your frantic rearranging. You will not always be spared the hard hour, but you will be sustained in it, and very often the hour itself will soften because the driver at the center has changed. I am letting you in on the working secret. Peace is not decorative. It is operational. When you abide first, action that follows is under new management, and you will discover that your work, which once felt like a field to be conquered, becomes a field already under cultivation by an invisible husbandman. Your part becomes humble and clean. Acknowledge, wait one breath, then do the next right thing. If you will make that your rhythm, before you answer, before you decide, before you defend, you will live to see the proof by fruit. Not the trumpet, not the banner, but the quiet increase of harmony, supply, and trust that tells you without advertisement that the Father within me doeth the works. Now we come to the hardest ground. Hard because it is nearest the heart. Interpersonal pain. The remark that cuts, the betrayal that takes your breath, the rumor that puts your name in someone else's mouth, the old family pattern that rehearses itself as if it had a right. In these places, the mind does not ask for God. It asks for a verdict. It drafts speeches. It consults a private judge who looks strangely like ourselves and always rules in our favor. The ego loves this court because in this court, it can be both prosecutor and hero. And yet, have you noticed, the more sentences we rehearse, the more restless we become. The heat does not resolve. It feeds on itself. The strange thing is that I, too, thought for years that the way through was to win. Win the point, win the confession, win the apology. And I discovered, let me say this with a degree of shame and relief, that when I won the point without finding peace, I had lost the hour. Now remember this, because it will spare you so much scalding inside. Abide in me is not suspended for conflict. It is especially given for conflict. The branch does not cease to be a branch because a storm rattles the vine. It holds more truly to its source. Do not think I am counseling you to live on cloud nine. No, no, I am saying that in the very moment the ego wants to rise and try your case in the court of your head, you have a closet to enter. Go into thy closet, shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. Close the door, not on the person out there, but on the inner courtroom. Let the first movement be inward, not outward. Abide first. How? Very simply, and I want you to feel the mercy in the simplicity. The text comes in. The tone is sharp. The face across the table tightens. Do not argue with biology. Heat rises, let it rise. But do not narrate it. Do not add the old headlines. Always, never, again, I knew it. The heat can be present without a story. Inside, whisper once as lightly as a feather, "Father," or "Here," or "I can of mine own self do nothing." Then stop, not to suppress, to abide. 3 seconds, if that is what is given. 10, if grace grants it. In that space, the hook comes out of your cheek. The need to win, which is only the fear of being nothing, loosens because you remember, listen, the kingdom of God is within you. Your worth never left the inner sanctuary, and from there, something else becomes possible. I am going to interrupt myself because I want to clear a common confusion. Does this mean we become doormats, that we call evil good and good evil? No, it means we refuse to let the ego be our instrument of justice. Resist not evil does not say, pretend there is no evil. It says, do not meet it on its level. Judge not that ye be not judged does not forbid discernment. It forbids the condemnation that binds you to the very thing you hate. In abiding, the action that follows may still be a firm no. It may be a boundary set with clean lines. It may be the naming of a wrong in plain words. But when it issues from peace, it does not wound, it frees. When it issues from ego, even your rightness becomes a weapon, and the shrapnel remains in your own chest. Forgiveness, in this light, is not a badge to be earned by gritting your teeth. Forgiveness is a fruit. When you touch the inner life, the personal claim relaxes. You discover, to your surprise, that you no longer need to collect the debt. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Do you hear the order buried there? As I release my claim on others, my own chains fall. But do not make a project of forgiving. Abide, let the sap flow. The branch does not force fruit. It remains and finds itself heavy with sweetness. So with you. One day you will meet the name that once burned, and it will not inflame you. You will remember the story without rehearsing it. This is not amnesia, it is release. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Ceases to be a line in a book and becomes the atmosphere in your chest. Let me give you a simple pattern for the heated hour. The word comes, the heat rises. Step 1, acknowledge inwardly, thou art here. Step 2, be still for one breath. Let the heat be heat. No narration. Step 3, say softly within, Father within, reveal what is true here. Then and only then, speak or do not. If a sentence is given, it will likely be shorter than your anger wanted. I hear that you're hurt. Or, let us step back 2 hours and look again. Or, no, that boundary stands. If silence is given, it will not be sulking. It will be peace holding the floor until a better hour presents itself. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. Do you see? Authority has shifted. Peace, not pressure, has become the governor of the scene. There is fruit, and I want you to know to look for it, because sometimes the world does not trumpet it, and yet it is there. Fewer reactive words, spaces in the conversation where you listen and discover you had been arguing with your own projection. A willingness to ask a clarifying question where before you would have thrown a spear. And sometimes, beautifully, unexpectedly, a softening appears on the other face. A phone call arrives that begins, I've been thinking. An old knot untangles in a single plain talk, not because you engineered it, but because you ceased fueling the invisible war. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. And if the other will not come, if the apology never arrives, abide and be at peace. Do not let your soul be ransomed to another's timetable. The proof by fruit remains, because the first harvest is in you, the end of self-torment, the closing of the inner court, the laying down of speeches that kept you awake. I have watched it too many times to doubt it. When you consent to peace, the midnight courtroom empties. The mind that loved to rehearse discovers it is allowed to rest. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, not as victory gives temporarily and with cost, but as presence gives deep and without debt. There will be hours when you must walk away, not in bitterness but in stewardship of your own temple. Abiding will not make you tolerate abuse. It will make you incapable of participating in the dance of accusation. You will say no without hatred and yes without fear. You will find that even in disagreement, respect can live because you are no longer trying to prove that you are. You are. Where you are, God is. Where God is, you are. Now remember this, and take it as a directive for the next difficult conversation. Abide first. If you forget and find yourself in the middle of a speech, powered by hurt, stop where you are, even mid-sentence if grace gives you courage, and be still for one beat. Do you notice how in that beat the pressure loosens and a truer word comes? That is the Father within, doing the works. I am letting you in on the secret. In conflict, peace is not a luxury, it is authority. Let it rule in your heart, and you will watch the need to win fall away like an old coat. Sometimes the room will change with you, sometimes it will not. But you will have kept the sanctuary, and from that sanctuary, life, yours and often theirs, will heal. And now, when the house is quiet and the light is low, let us come to the night watch. It is a peculiar hour. The body is ready to rest, but the mind, unpoliced by daylight tasks, begins to rehearse. It replays the day's misunderstandings, edits tomorrow's conversations, counts the sheep of bills and deadlines, and even, this is the strange thing, tries to think about God with such effort that it becomes another form of labor. I know this hour. I did not always know how to live it. I used to believe that if I could only think the right holy thought with enough intensity, the night would give in and let me sleep. And I discovered with a mixture of humor and sorrow that I had merely changed the name of worry to devotion. It was still worry. Now remember this and let it free you at once. At night, abide in me means let the presence hold what the mind insists on carrying. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. If that is true at noon, it is especially true at midnight. He that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Do you hear the mercy hidden there? The one in the midst of you does not nod off. Therefore you need not take the night watch as if you were the lone sentinel on a dangerous wall. You have a shepherd who keepeth your going out and your coming in. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. Even if the eyes remain open, safety is the atmosphere when you abide. Let me give you a simple nocturnal practice. It does not ask strain of you. It invites consent. You are in bed. The thoughts begin their circuits. Do not fight them. Do not recruit them. Let them be clouds that do not require your ladder. Turn ever so slightly inward. Acknowledge, without bargaining, without promise, thou art here. That is all. Not a sentence about God, a recognition of God. And be still. Do you notice even now as you listen that something in the chest eases when you stop trying to make the night behave? That is the first fruit of acknowledgement. Now use the breath not as a machine to control, but as a doorway to walk through. On the in-breath, a gentle consent. Here, on the out-breath, a gentle release. Thine. Or, if you like, in-breath, Father. Out-breath, I rest. Do not count. Do not manage. Let the breath be breathed in you. You are not trying to fall asleep. I must underline that. You are abiding. Sleep may come as fruit. It is not the aim. Your aim is the same as in the day. Inner contact. Be still and know that I am God. If knowledge appears as peace without sleep, you have still touched God. And if sleep follows, it will be sleep given, not grabbed. For so, he giveth his beloved sleep. I want to interrupt myself because someone is whispering, But the problems are real. If I do not work them out now, morning will punish me. Friends, listen. You will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. You do not make wise plans by burning the wick of your sanity at 2 o'clock in the morning. Go into your inner closet and shut the door on the courtroom of your mind. Place the whole pile, names, numbers, forecasts, on the altar of the presence and say quietly, Father within, these are thine. Then be still, not blank, present. The one who neither slumbers nor sleeps can govern lines and ledgers better than your churn. Come morning, you will find an order waiting that you could not have engineered by pacing. If it helps you to make an offering, do it in the privacy of your soul. Take the first fear by name, the meeting, the bill, the test, and lay it down into the inner silence as if you were putting a letter into a faithful post. Say only, thine. Do not pick it up to check the address. Then the next, thine, and the next. Between each, rest in thou art here. You are training the heart to relocate its trust from its own narrative to the living presence. You will feel often quickly the ache across the brow ease, the hands open, the belly unclench. This is not sedation, this is shepherding. He restoreth my soul, he leadeth me beside the still waters. At night, the still waters may be 2 quiet breaths wide. That is enough. The river flows just the same. Some nights the body remains wakeful. Let that not alarm you. Stay with the practice. Soft eyes in the dark, the pillow under the cheek, the awareness of weight given to the mattress as a picture of the soul given to God. Whisper within, once in a while, I can of mine own self do nothing, and let the relief have you. If drowsiness comes, do not celebrate it. Continue to abide. If it does not, do not mourn it. Continue to abide. In this way the night becomes holy, not because of hours counted on a clock, but because of communion known in the secret place. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly. The open reward may be a simple one. You rise with less brittleness, a strange steadiness in your step, and the very decision that had tormented you arrives with its own quiet yes or no. There is one more mercy here. Night is when old regrets like to dress up as prophets. They say, if only, then, and they bind tomorrow with yesterday's chains. Do not argue with ghosts. Abide. Now is the accepted time. Stay with thou art here. Let that be the present tense of your life. The blood runs quieter when you refuse to sentence yourself in the dark, and if you must make amends, the instruction will come in daylight from that same presence, not from self-accusation. The shepherd leads. He does not drive. I am letting you in on the secret. The most productive hour of your business, your art, your family life may be this hallowed minute at 3 a.m. in which you do nothing but consent to God. Because in that minute, ownership transfers. The burden which was never yours to bear returns to its rightful bearer. Underneath are the everlasting arms. When that is realized, even faintly, the world is safe enough to let go of for a while, and you will discover, do you doubt it, that many a knot unties by morning, not because you worked it, but because the Father within acknowledged, did the works, while you rested in Him. So when the thoughts circle tonight, do not tighten your grip. Loosen. Not into neglect, but into trust. Put your ear to the inner stillness, and let the breath be your usher into the sanctuary. Thou art here. I rest. If sleep comes, it will be His gift. If wakefulness remains, you will not be alone in it. You will lie down, and even waking you will be kept. And from that keeping, the next day will rise to meet a soul already sheltered, already supplied, already governed, not by worry's terrible industry, but by the quiet, untiring shepherd who neither slumbers nor sleeps. Now let us speak plainly about the open reward. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. We have made our way into the closet. We have shut the door. We have learned to whisper, "Thou art here." And now we must let ourselves see what happens in the street, in the office, in the kitchen, as a result of what took place in the secret place. The strange thing is that the most convincing evidence will not be fireworks. It will be the temperature of your next sentence. It will be the way time opens a space just when you need it. It will be a bill paid without your old panic, a piece of news that yesterday would have tipped you and today leaves you steady. Quiet fruit, daily fruit, fruit that is consistent enough to educate you that this is not coincidence. This is law, spiritual law. I am letting you in on the secret, though by now you have tasted it. Peace within translates into wiser speech without. Do you notice that when you have acknowledged the presence, your words come out clean and simple, without the burrs that catch on other people? When you abide before you answer, you discover that brevity is not poverty, it is authority. Timing becomes a companion. Doors you would have rattled yesterday open with a gentle push today, or else they remain shut and you are not harmed, because you are not trying to break into rooms that do not belong to you. Choices that used to feel like cliff edges become steps on a path. And very practically, listen, cooperation improves. A team that used to splinter finds itself in one conversation. A supplier who was slow improves without drama. A child who braced at your tone relaxes, not because you learned a technique, but because the atmosphere changed, and the soul always responds to atmosphere. Supply, too, takes on a new character. I do not mean that bags of gold will drop through your ceiling. I mean that what is needed tends to arrive when it is needed, and without the whip of your anxiety. An invoice is paid on the right day. A client who had vanished comes back with a clear ask. A piece of work that had been stuck in the mud suddenly finds its track. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Do you hear the order? First the kingdom which is within you, not first the plan, first the inner acknowledging, and then the additions. Additions, not wages. Gifts, not trophies. Fruit, not proof of your cleverness. And health. Let us be simple and honest here. Health begins to respond to restfulness. The body, which has been obeying the drumbeat of your fear for so long, hears a different drummer and quiets. Tension loosens. Breath deepens. The ache that fed on resistance discovers it is not being resisted and loses its meal. I am not handing you a bargaining chip. If I abide, God must heal this in such and such a way by Tuesday. No. I am telling you what I have witnessed in homes and hospitals and at kitchen tables. When the mind surrenders its compulsive managing and returns to the inner sanctuary, the body receives better government, sometimes swiftly, sometimes gradually, but with a character that is unmistakable. Ease appears where effort used to live. He restoreth my soul. Restoration has a sound to it. You will hear it in your own chest. Now I must interrupt myself, because we must guard against superstition. Do not turn fruit into a bargain. Do not make of God a machine you feed with minutes of meditation in exchange for outcomes. The vine does not bribe the branch. The branch abides and life moves. The fruit is not a prize for good behavior. It is the natural outcome of alignment with reality. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. If we abide to get, we are still worshiping getting. Abide to be. Abide because truth is within you and calls you home. And in that home, you will find food on the table. Not because you struck a deal, but because you are in the house where food is always served. How do you learn to trust this? By remembering. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. Forgetting is one of the mind's oldest habits, so let us train it in a gentle way. Keep in the secrecy of your life a small record, not a trumpet, not a social announcement, a record for your own heart, a date and a line. Before the call, I abided. The tone changed. 3 breaths before the meeting, the right question came. Night watch woke steady, the decision clarified by noon. Quiet prayer for the child. The fever eased. Do not dress it up. Do not interpret. Just notice and note. You are educating your faith with its own evidence. And in the lean hours, because there will be hours when the sky looks blank, you will open that little book and discover that the pattern is faithful. The Father that seeth in secret rewardeth openly, not once, but again and again in the fabric of ordinary days. I want to say this with a great deal of authority, born of watching it work in lives as varied as the world itself. The fruit teaches you how to continue. One proof empowers the next practice. One calm sentence mid-argument strengthens your courage to abide earlier next time. One provision arriving without frenzy loosens the hand that used to clutch. And something else happens, something very precious. Gratitude becomes quiet, consistent, and free of show. You will find yourself saying thank you as you close a door, as you hang up a call, as you set a plate on a table, because you will recognize the signature, not yours. The Father within me doeth the works. Do not be surprised if those around you cannot name what has changed, even as they relax around you. That, too, is fruit. Less friction, fewer explanations needed. A neighbor who once avoided you stops by. A manager who was flinty becomes fair, or nothing noticeable seems to change out there, and yet you move through the same corridors with a composure that turns the corridor itself into a sanctuary. That is not nothing. That is the kingdom governing geography. Now remember this and let it steady you. The most trustworthy confirmation of abiding is the quiet, consistent fruit it bears in daily life. If you must choose between a flash of ecstasy that leaves no trace and a steady stream of small harmonies that keep appearing where you live, choose the stream. Choose the branch life. Choose the rhythm of acknowledging and acting from presence. Attend to the secret and do not neglect to notice the open reward when it comes. Not to collect trophies, but to deepen trust. In this way, day by day, proof by fruit will carry you from an idea about abiding to a life of it. And you will wake one morning and realize that what began as moments has become a manner. What began as practice has become your atmosphere, and the outer fields, without your whip, are quietly bearing. And now, because the Father has not brought us this far to leave us with only an idea, let us gather the threads into a life. Abide in me is not a moment you once had and now miss. It is the air of a new country that you learn to breathe until breathing becomes unconscious. We began with a concept. We discovered brief contacts, 30 seconds, 5 seconds, the first tastes of quiet. Then came the frequent returns, before the call, between the sentences, at the stoplight, in the stairwell, and at last, without fanfare, something in us begins to remain. Activity continues, but under it runs a river. Words are spoken, but beneath them an unspoken assurance hums, "Where I am, God is. Where God is, I am." The most intimate command has become a continuing experience. I want you to see the mercy in the order. Do not despise beginnings. The kingdom does not demand ecstasy. It invites fidelity. A concept is like a door you notice for the first time. A brief contact is the first time you try the knob and find it opens. Frequent returns are the walks you take through that doorway until the path is worn. And the lived background of presence is the hour you realize you are dwelling there, even while typing, washing, deciding, consoling. It is not that you stop living. It is that you stop living unattended. In him we live and move and have our being, ceases to be a verse and becomes the geography of your day. Let me give you a simple rule of life, not a law to bind you, a rhythm to carry you. Morning, before the world claims your name, turn within. not long, sacred. Sit on the edge of the bed or in a chair you keep for this purpose and acknowledge, Father, thou art here. Be still until, not because you forced it, but because grace gave it, you feel that slight settling, that inner assent. Read a line of scripture if you like, not to think about it, but to rest in it. Be still and know that I am God. Close the outer door on the world by closing the inner door of self-assertion. Let the day be born from presence, not pressure. Midday, 2 or 3 resets. They can be the length of a breath. Between tasks, before you open the next window, set down the papers of the mind and whisper within, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me doeth the works. Then pause. You may feel nothing dramatic. That is fine. You are consenting to governance. Do you notice how the appetite to rush loosens its grip when you do this? That is fruit already forming. Before conversations, a prelude of silence. Your phone is in your hand, or the meeting is about to begin. Let the first speech be inward. Thou art the worder of my words, or simply, thy peace. One breath, then speak. You will find, with a quiet amazement that never quite wears off, that sentences arrive clean and trustable, and sometimes the wisdom to say nothing arrives with them. Set a watch, O Lord, before my mouth. Keep the door of my lips. You have placed the watch in the secret place. The open reward is gentled speech. Evening, gratitude and release. Not a performance, no trumpets. 2 or 3 lines offered in secrecy. Thank you for the kept places I noticed and the ones I missed. Thank you for the corrections within my words. Thank you for the provision that arrived without my whip. Then lay the unclosed matters on the altar. These are thine. Names, concerns, the peace that still puzzles you. On the altar, not to neglect, but to trust. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. You are training the heart to refuse overtime in the old courtroom. Night, remembrance. We have spoken of the watch in the dark. Let it be simple. Breath like a lullaby, not technique. In breath, here. Out breath, I rest. If sleep comes, it is his gift. If wakefulness remains, it is his keeping. He that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. In this way, the circle of your hours becomes a chalice in which presence is acknowledged at dawn, sipped at noon, shared before speech, blessed at dusk, trusted in the dark. This is the continuing experience. Now I am going to interrupt myself because I want to close a door on a thief that loves to rob beginners. But I am not holy enough. But I have failed too many times. But I do not feel much. Friends, it is an impossibility that God should take me or anyone out of the billions and give what is not available to all, high or low, rich or poor, black or white, sick or well, saint or sinner. The kingdom is within you. The only requirement is willingness to turn within again and again. Anyone and everyone can begin with 30 honest seconds, and if the first 30 are noisy, begin again. If you fall asleep mid-prayer, wake with thank you and begin again. The door does not tire of opening. How will you know it is becoming a way of life? By a quiet continuity, not fireworks, a steadier pulse under your tasks, a reflex to pause before pushing, a new habit of gratitude without show. The questions, what shall I do? What shall I say? Begin to be asked inwardly by instinct, and the answers come, often without words. You will catch yourself halfway through a sentence and feel the gentler sentence replacing it. You will detect the old panic rising and discover that your feet have already found the inner floor. The background hums, the sap flows, the branch remains. Now remember this and carry it as your commission. Keep it sacred, keep it simple, keep it secret. Sacred because we are dealing with the holy, not a device for getting our way. Simple, because the mind loves to complicate what the heart already knows. Secret, because what is most precious grows in the soil of privacy. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Do not advertise your practice. Let the open reward speak. A quieter home, a wiser word, a provision right on time. That is sermon enough. And remember, too, your only work is to abide. You will never need to know problems. You will only need to know God. Leave outcomes to the life that knows how to bear fruit. If you speak of yourself, you bear witness to a lie. If you acknowledge the Father within, the works will appear in their own wise order. Abide first. Return often. Consent continually. In this way, the intimacy becomes constancy. The moment becomes manner. The practice becomes atmosphere. Then you will wake, not to a new doctrine, but to a familiar presence, and step into your day already accompanied. And as you move through your errands and your calls and your meals and your rest, you will find yourself saying, in a whisper you barely hear, "Thank you." And there, in that quiet, you will know what I mean when I tell you, with the authority of love and of long watching, that the command has become a life, and the life within you doeth the works. Go in peace and abide.